Now, Karen and Audrey have been in a committed relationship for 11 years. They've got a beautiful family, and everything was going great until their daughter, Kinsey, got sick.
When we were actually given the diagnosis of aplastic anemia, our entire world turned completely upside down.
Suddenly, one of our children is critically, perhaps fatally ill.
Her color looked really bad all over. She had no energy.
There is no worse thing than having the child die. Nothing. And it might happen.
I can't describe what it was like to have this energetic, bright, beautiful little girl who all of a sudden overnight lost so much of that energy and became this sick kid who was fighting for her life.
She was vivacious. She was always mentally ahead of her age group. I don't remember exactly how she even learned to read, but before she ever started any kind of school, she suddenly could read.
One night while Kinsey was taking a bath, we noticed that she had these little tiny bruises called petechiae behind her ears and on her eyelids.
We immediately made an appointment with the pediatricians, but our regular pediatrician was not there. And what he said was, oh, it's just a virus. Take her home. She'll be fine.
But a couple of days later, they had gotten worse. So we took her back to the doctor, and they admitted her to the hospital and began doing a variety of tests.
She took one look at Kinsey and knew, without saying a word to us, what she was looking at. And Kinsey went from that doctor's office to the hospital.
Initially, they thought she had
licensing reimagined.
leukemia, and then they determined it was very severe aplastic anemia, which they said was every bit as bad, if not worse.
Because things started bad and they were so much worse, Karen found a doctor in Milwaukee who had treated hundreds of cases.
In a matter of weeks, we got her to Dr. Margolis, whom we call Dr. Big Dog, world-renowned specialist in aplastic anemia.
Dr. Margolis, the great and powerful Dr. Margolis, did many tests which should have been done already and weren't. He said, with or without a transplant, just 4 weeks, call in hospice.
I have one memory before I was diagnosed with aplastic anemia. My family was moving from Arizona to New Mexico, and when we walked into our new house, there was a big staircase leading up from our living room up to my room. And I remember walking in the door of our new house and thinking, wow, this staircase is so cool. I think I was 4 years old at the time. And that is all that I remember before my parents were told that I probably had 4 weeks to live. So everything in my life, I'm 28 now, that I remember is after aplastic anemia, and it has truly impacted every aspect of my life, except for that very first house.
What is aplastic anemia? I don't think a lot of people are familiar with it.
Basically a failure of the bone marrow to produce red cells, white cells, and platelets.
Like leukemia, right, exactly.
Aplastic anemia is a bone marrow failure disorder. It's a lot like a blood cancer, like leukemia, but when you have leukemia, you have bad cells in your bone marrow, which does three things. It helps you have energy, it helps you fight infection, and it helps you stop bleeding when your body starts bleeding. So when you have cancer of the bone marrow, your body has bad cells that try to kill the good ones. When you have aplastic anemia, there are no cells.
My doctor described it as a garden. Now leukemia, which I don't have, is like there is bad seeds in the garden. But with aplastic anemia, there's is no seeds really.
One of the early appointments, the doctor called us in and said that the best option for her was a bone marrow transplant, ideally from a matched sibling. If not from a matched sibling, from an unrelated donor. And if that was not available, we would look at other options with immune suppression chemotherapy. So we, of course, had Jillian tested right away, and I just felt like she's got to be a match. She's got to be a match. I mean, we knew there was only a 25% chance that any two siblings would match, and sadly, Jillian wasn't. But we thought, okay, we'll find a perfect match out in the donor base somewhere in the world. And when they searched the donor base, there was no match anywhere.
we started thinking, wonder if we still have embryos from the pregnancy attempt with Jillian.
2 years prior to Kenzie's diagnosis, I had had to have a hysterectomy.
See, what are the chances?
I called the bank.
The bank.
Just thinking, we had released those eggs, those embryos, 2 years previously. We were no longer paying storage for them. We weren't going to be able to have any more children. We had released them, and we knew that they were gone, but I was so desperate to try anything that I called and asked them, and they said, no, I'm sorry. They're gone.
Dead end number 3. They tell you no.
But the next day, my friend Mary, who's a receptionist at Dr. Lohman's office, called me back and said she had done some checking and they were there.
We knew from the outset that the odds were not in our favor. At every turn, the odds were not in our favor. We were told even if we were to find a surrogate and be able to use the frozen embryos, there was only a 25% chance that any sibling would match.
Karen's father just mentioned it to Karen's sister Teresa, who said, I'll do it. And we thought, 37 years old, tubes tied, endometriosis, 1 ovary, 3 children already. We'll take it.
There was a lot going against the odds of her being an ideal surrogate. But despite all those odds, it worked.
I don't remember a lot about us deciding that we were going to try to use a surrogate, but I remember feeling really hopeful, knowing that there was another chance for me to survive, because I did understand that if you don't have a matched sibling donor, your chances of survival with very severe aplastic anemia are just extremely low. A matched sibling donor is the best chance at surviving that without major side effects. And so when I didn't have a sibling donor and there was no match anywhere in the world, I just had this sense of running out the clock and that we were going to run out of time.
Now, for you, Audrey, I got to ask you the $64,000 question. Teresa carries this beautiful little baby, Tegan. Tegan's born. Is Tegan a match?
The chances of her being a match were so slight. The chances of her being born were so slight. Karen's vision and persistence have carried us through all this, because what are the chances?
Very slim.
The answer is yes.
No.
Perfect. Bone marrow match.
When Tegan was born, there were 3 camera crews there from the local TV news, and some national media outlets picked up the story.
Tegan Morrison was born yesterday and is a perfect match for her sister.
The fact that she's a match and is going to help save Kenzie's life just makes the possibility for our family to be happy, healthy, and whole, which a year ago we didn't think could happen.
And I think she's just a wonderful little miracle of joy, aren't you?
She came a month early, but she was a perfect match, perfectly healthy baby, and we thought maybe this is going to work. But because she was early, we had to delay the transplant.
While we were waiting for Tegan to get to 5 kilos, 11 pounds, unknown to the universe and Dr. Margolis, Kenzie, after 27 months of treatment, was going into remission.
He said, I'm 99% sure this kid needs a transplant, but I need to be 100% sure. Let's do another bone marrow biopsy. After that biopsy, he called us all in, including Kenzie, so we felt like the news must be pretty good, and he said, she's showing signs of remission. Let's let her start school. And we were like, what? Start school? We've been in quarantine. She can't be around anybody except her sisters, no other kids. How can we let her start school? But he said she will sink or swim, and if she sinks, we've got Tegan in the wings and we'll go to transplant. It was just, one of those wonderful stories that you hear about, you read about, but living it was just, surreal.
Artlist.io.
My sisters and I were on vacation recently at Disney World, which is one of our favorite places. And almost every day, people ask if we were triplets.
Music licensing
And I think part of
reimagined.
that is that we do look a lot alike, but the other part is just that we are so clearly so close that even if people maybe otherwise wouldn't think we were the same age, it just looks like we're just three of the same people. When you grow up in the shadow of a life-threatening illness, everything means more. All the family time, all of the moments that you get together, because it all feels like it's extra and you know that it's not guaranteed. And so all of that time we would spend together, I think we just became even closer.
You know, this story has so many twists and turns, like many such journeys. It's been a bit of a roller coaster in the dark. When Kinsey, who seemed perfectly healthy last fall,
Music licensing
went to the doctor
reimagined.
to say, hey, you know, is it okay if I try to get pregnant? And then had another biopsy and more blood tests, and we learned that in fact she had relapsed.
My husband and I went to check in with my doctors, just hoping to get a clean bill of health. And so we went from hoping that everything was going to be fine and we could move on with our life as newlyweds to now getting thrown back into treatment all over again and being told that I would need transfusions and
Artlist.io.
I would also need a bone marrow transplant finally within the next 5 years. So that has been really tough for both of us and just frustrating to feel like I had this disease beat for so long and now it's come back just when I was thinking that I could finally move on from it. But I still feel
Music
really
licensing
hopeful because
reimagined.
I do still have Tegan as a full sibling bone marrow match. And I am sad and frustrated and even a little bit angry, but I'm also hopeful and excited even a little bit because if I do finally have a bone marrow transplant, that would give my body the chance to really finally be cured. And that's only possible because of Tegan and everything we've been through together to get here.
Artlist.io.